Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. All right, guys. Today's date, August 23rd, 2023, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we get started, guys, let you know that we are a news podcast. We do try to get the best reputable sources from where we pull our news. We do not use sensationalism like Fox News or Newsmax or The Blaze or whatever outright tinfoil hat that some people like to go to. We believe in actually respectable, award-winning journalism sites. That also being said, we do try to watch our language, but words do fly. At the same time, maybe things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, with that being said, I did not have this on my bingo list. And what I mean by that is the bingo list of 2023. Now, it has been a crazy list, but nowhere on here do we have before our next presidential election that we had to watch people do the perp walk that should have been going a long ass time ago. Observe.
Tonight, the first of Donald Trump's 18 co-defendants in the sweeping election interference case in Georgia beginning to surrender for processing at Fulton County's infamous Rice Street Jail. Attorney John Eastman, charged with orchestrating the Trump campaign's fake elector scheme, booked and released on a $100,000 bond.
Do you still think the election was stolen?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Still.
No question. No question about it.
And Scott Hall, a bail bondsman charged with attempting to breach election equipment.
Is there something wrong here? There abso-damn-lutely is.
The former president posting overnight his intention to turn himself in on Thursday, attacking the case against him as a witch hunt. Mr. Trump's Fulton County appearance also intended to pull the political spotlight away from Wednesday's first Republican debate in Wisconsin, which he has chosen to skip, citing his commanding lead in the polls. The former president's absence dividing his rivals.
The frontrunner who has decided not to be there will be out on bail in 4 different jurisdictions. We can no longer pretend that this is normal. We can't pretend that this is acceptable.
I have no issue with him skipping the first couple of debates. This is a good opportunity for me to introduce myself to the country.
People are starving for a message of hope and optimism as long as it's anchored in conservatism.
With 8 candidates participating, Mr. Trump's closest rival, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, will take center stage and expects to take the majority of the jabs from other candidates.
I don't think it's any secret that I'm going to be probably the guy that people are going to come after. I mean, certainly that's been true.
And Garrett, as you know, there's been speculation the former president is trying to draw attention away from this debate.
That's right, Lester. He has pre-taped an interview with former Fox host Tucker Carlson that should be posted online tomorrow. And as posted, he expects to be very busy tomorrow, suggesting he may have other debate distractions in the works.
Crazy, isn't it? Because I did not have this on my bingo card of 2023. I did not have it to where, Dorito himself would still make a spectacle of himself because he still believes, and as you can see, his cohorts are currently being walked over because of a certain prosecutor in Georgia, a black woman, mind you, is doing what we all wanted them to do. Have him do the perp walk. And of course, Trump still being protected by his army of lawyers, but he says he will surrender Thursday. Rudy Giuliani and others, as you've already seen, have already went ahead and surrendered themselves, be fingerprinted and bonded out. Now, speaking of those bond details, because again, Trump believes that he is going to be, quote unquote, very liberal in these cases. Now, for anybody that's ever been to court, especially in high profile court cases, you're not allowed to say spit. You're not allowed to say anything about the case, what's going on with the case. You're not allowed until the court case is over. It's called tampering. It's called tampering with the court. Tampering with the court. Same one with the jury. Jurors cannot talk until the case is over. Otherwise, there'd be, there'd be tampering of case, which could actually get a case on mistrial, but can get thrown out. Now, for all of us that know this, Trump doesn't keep his mouth shut for spit. He doesn't. Even more so, if you look at the bond details that I'm about to show, I can guarantee he's going to break at least 2 of these.
In Atlanta, attorneys for former President Donald Trump striking a deal with the Fulton County prosecutor to surrender at the county jail Thursday for fingerprinting and his mugshot photo. The agreement calls for Trump to be released on $200,000 bond and with clear-cut conditions. Trump can make no direct or indirect threat towards any potential witnesses, including his 18 alleged co-conspirators. That provision also including posts on social media or reposts of posts made by another individual. Trump's defense lawyers, a judge, and top Fulton County prosecutor Fani Willis signing off on those terms. Last week, Willis handed down an indictment accusing Trump of orchestrating a scheme to reverse his 2020 election loss to Joe Biden. $100,000 bonds were set for Trump attorneys John Eastman and Kenneth Chesborough, who were also due to surrender at the Fulton jail this week. Sources tell ABC News Trump pre-taped an interview with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson to run head-to-head against tomorrow's first 2024 Republican presidential debate in Milwaukee.
So as you can see, guys, he has multiple conditions. And I guarantee, like I said, he's going to break 2 of them. Number 1, as you heard, that he cannot make any direct or indirect threat to any of his co-conspirators. That's already going to go out the window. I guarantee, you know what? If I was a betting person, I guarantee on that Tucker Carlson tape show, because, Tucker Carlson used to be one of the three-headed hydras that was at Fox News, got let go a long time ago, and somehow is still making his way in the same space as Bill O'Reilly and the rest of those lost Fox figures. But anyway, on that interview that he does have, I guarantee Trump has already pointed some out. He's probably already sat there and called them rats or snitches. I guarantee he did, because it's before the trial. So since the trial hasn't taken place, even though he did sign it, I guarantee there's a few jabs in that interview. And number 2, not making any social media posts. Come on now. It's Dorito. If you don't think that somehow, some way, that he will not literally and figuratively be making some sort of tweet during this trial, I guarantee there's a betting pool in Vegas about that right now. Because Trump wants to sit there. See, this is why I said Trump is every napkin American's wet dream. He is doing exactly what he wants with zero consequence. He is literally every Caucasian American's dream of doing something and not getting repercussions from it. So that's why Trump's allowed to do all this. Trump loves the spotlight. He loves notoriety. He loves being infamous. And even now, during a political debate, which again is happening Thursday because those Republicans are getting together to have that debate, he is sitting there going, no, I don't need to join it. I'm leading the polls. Why do I even need to show up? And from a political standpoint, he's not wrong. But that just goes to show you, and forgive me for my back language I'm about to say, how truly fucked up it is that a lot of people will still sit there and say, yeah, Trump's my president. And will still ride with this. Even more so, like I said before, you now have 8, including Trump, 8 presidential candidates that are all about to basically run in the next year for your vote to be the Republican nomination for president. And think about this. He is outdoing everybody while dodging possible jail time. The man is on 6 cases, 3 of them federal, and he's indicted on every last one of them. If you were Trump's lawyer, you could put your kids through college right now for the billable hours that man is paying. And by the way, who's paying for his defense? Everybody that donates to his campaign. Trump, give it to him. The man has learned to raise a cult and fleece it generously. Even more so as they talk about the debate, it's still about Trump. You just can't make this stuff up.
to be in Georgia on Thursday. He's already made it pretty clear where he won't be tomorrow, and that's in Wisconsin for the first Republican presidential debate. But 538's Galen Druk is there now and joins me from Milwaukee with more. So, Galen, Trump holding a commanding lead over all his rivals right now. So let's talk about how big of a deal this is that he's skipping the debate.
Yeah, Kira, it definitely matters because debates are moments during a campaign, particularly a primary campaign, that can create some volatility outside of, say, scandals or crises. This is the moment when voters' attention is really focused on the candidates and the campaign. And these are all Republicans. And so many of them may be well liked by Republican voters and may be open to switching their preferences. Now, Donald Trump has calculated that he has more to lose by being on that debate stage than he has to gain. You know, when you look at polling, why do Republican voters like Trump? It's because he's strong. You know, he's a fighter. He fights for the Republican agenda. And a moment that made him maybe look weak or gave the opportunity to a DeSantis or somebody like that to attack him could make him vulnerable. And it's moments like this when voters are potentially open to changing their minds.
So let's talk about who has the most to gain here and the most to lose now that Trump won't be on the stage. And of course, a lot of people wondering, look, if he could stay in the lead, why show up for any of the other debates?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so one person who may have to gain here, as you suggest, is if this turns into something of a dogfight, Trump can say, I'm above the fray, you know, I'm not going to stoop to their level. I'm already focused on the general election. But let's put that aside for a second, because the candidates on stage tomorrow night are going to be focusing on getting their message out. And there's a couple people who have something to gain or lose here. So folks like DeSantis or Tim Scott, or maybe even Nikki Haley or Vivek Ramaswamy, are well liked by Republican voters. When you look at favorability polling, you see that Republicans like them, unlike candidates like, say, you know, Chris Christie or Ted Cruz, who aren't particularly well liked. So if they, you know, land a good attack, make their argument well, it could be the case that voters start to shift their support towards those candidates. You know, I've been out in Ozaukee County, which is just north of Milwaukee this week, talking to voters. And a lot of folks, even who pay attention to conservative media, don't know a lot of the people who are running. And so this is going to be an opportunity for candidates who are already well-liked to really lock in that support if they can.
All right. And what kind of issues and topics are we going to hear discussed, you think, the most tomorrow night?
Oh, Kira, if only I knew. So here's what I can tell you. According to polling, Republican voters care the most about things like inflation and the economy. They also care a lot about illegal immigration and crime, and then moral values, which may encompass things like wokeism or parental rights or things like that. That is strictly according to the polling. And so if these candidates are maybe listening to their advisors, they may be telling them, talk about this, you know, get some good zingers on illegal immigration or inflation or something like that. However, I cannot predict what's going to happen, but I think in all likelihood, Trump will become a major topic of the debate because there are going to be candidates up there, particularly folks like Asa Hutchinson, Chris Christie, or Mike Pence, who really want to create a contrast with him and basically say that he's bad for the party. So I think we're going to get a little bit of a tension between those two things, folks talking about those issues that I mentioned and folks who really want to create a contrast with Trump.
All right.
Yeah, but the problem is, and I say this wholeheartedly, all the time, because whenever there's a debate, and I'm being very nice about this, whenever there's a debate, it's never what it should be. You know what it is? A debate has literally turned into, especially for the Republican side, it has turned into the white people's version of Yo Mama jokes. The Dirty Dozen, snaps, roast sessions, whatever you call them. That's what the Republican national debate is. It is nothing more than the white people's version of Dirty Dozens. It's whoever can get the most shots on the candidate, whoever can get the most talking points, whoever can talk about the things that you care about while saying completely nothing wins the debate. That's all it is. And I hate that. I hate that for the simple fact of the matter is that nothing gets done from it. For example, what are they going to talk about? Oh, let's talk about how the fact that the economy is not great, even though they won't talk about the fact that Republicans destroyed it and that we have to build back their mistakes. Oh, well, let's talk about education. Oh, you mean after they went after every educator, after they basically sat there and said, they basically ran teachers off. They sat there and decided to control what books and things that your kids can read, particularly people of color and LGBTQ plus authors. Oh, let's talk about the fact of wokeism, because how dare minorities get ahead of white people? They're going to talk about that. Because you know why? Because when it comes down to it, mostly every conservative, that's all they want to hear. They don't want to hear about how Republicans can solve problems. They want to hear why Republicans believe in a smaller government. They don't want to hear that, they really want states to have more control than federal, unless it's something they want to push over people. Then they want to go federal. See what I'm getting at here? Every Republican presidential debate has always followed that same format. It's always been who can roast the most, who can look the most charismatic, and at the end of the day, who sounds the smartest. Which, forgive me for saying this, a Republican National Convention is like being the smartest person in the slow class. It is. Don't believe me? Let's just look at the field for 1 second. For 1 second, look at the field. I mean, this right now is your primary poll, okay? Your primary poll that was taken of who conservatives would love to see as president. Look at these numbers. Trump, 52.5%. Mike Pence, 4.7%. Tim Scott, 3.4%. Ron DeSantis, 15.2%. Nikki Haley, that's not her real name, 3.5%. Asa Hutchinson, not even a full 1%, 0.7%. Rashami, 9.3%. Christie, 3.5%. Burgum, 0.4%. Trump by himself is the equivalent of everyone else on the poll. That alone, if you literally added everybody else's percentages up, Trump would still beat them by double digits. That alone tells you why Trump, as crooked and as compromised as a presidential candidate he alone could still win the primary. Because again, they don't treat the primary as they should. Now, if it was me and I'm the moderator, I would be asking questions that make the candidates uncomfortable, because they should be uncomfortable. You want real answers because these people are wanting your votes. But on the Republican side, they don't care. This is the part where I'm getting at. When it comes to conservatism, they just don't care, because that's how Trump literally got into power in the first place. He tapped into that hidden white anger, racism, rage, and sent people to the polls. He spewed everything he heard on conservative media and Fox News, and folks ate it up. And the fact that he has yet to see, well, that's not true. He will see his day in court. He will see multiple days in court. But beforehand, you couldn't even get him in court. Now he's facing 6 cases. But yet, he's skipping the primary because I'm in the lead. Which again, if I'm a strategist, I can't fault him for in that case. Ron DeSantis alone, who I always said was Trump 2.0, shoots himself in the foot on a daily basis. I mean, he's already let go of campaign staff, hired a different campaign manager, because all of his decisions in Florida are coming back to haunt him. The fact that the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, again, his battles with Disney, he single-handedly rewriting African-American AP studies in Florida. The fact that he tried to push PragerU videos in where they try to teach that slavery was literally beneficial to people enslaved. All of these decisions that DeSantis make are coming back to haunt him. And trust and believe, come tomorrow on the debate side, they're going to eat him up for that, because he has no leg to stand on. But neither does Tim Scott. Tim Scott single-handedly killed the George Floyd police reform bill. He actually killed the voting rights bill. We could have had police reform many times over. But because Republicans don't want to seem racist, they send the only black man in their party to argue about a bill, and it goes nowhere. Tim Scott has no legs to stand on, even though he'll sit there and say the whole entire time, I came from an impoverished family and I came up, and if I could do it, you could do. Yes, token Negro, you out of 100, a 1 in a 1 million chance, because you're like Michael Orr from The Blind Side, completely and utterly fabricated. At the same time, Nikki Haley, who has no leg to stand on either. Aisha Hutchinson, again, no leg to stand on. Rashami, no leg to stand on. Mike Pence was vice president and was I used to say Kamala Harris was the most ineffective vice president. No, it's Pence. Because Pence won't sit there and say, oh, well, Trump wanted me to overturn the election and I refuse to do it. And I refuse to bend to his will. Was the one time when you weren't in office that you would do something right. And I can keep going down the list anyway. With DeSantis, Governor Chris Christie, who again was spotting nothing about Obama that was good as a president. But once Hurricane Sandy came through and President Obama came along, Chris Christie was helpful. Chris Christie was, oh, thank you, President Obama, for coming. I appreciate it. That tune changed real quick when you needed government funds. So what am I getting at here? The Republican debate that is going to happen tomorrow, for all intents and purposes, is going to be a shit show. It is. It is going to be pandering. It is going to be nothing done. It's going to be blaming Democrats. There'll be shots on Biden. There'll be shots on wokeism. Black Lives Matter will be seen as a terrorist group. And at the same time, they will sit there and say that the Proud Boys, the Boogaloo Boys, and those on January 6th were patriots. I guarantee that's what's going to happen tomorrow. And that's how they do it. This is why I keep saying the entire time, guys, pay attention to politics, not just federal, but local. Because even in Tennessee, the person actually running our state legislature, Mr. Sexton, if you ever watch this video, you're a dick. Considering the fact that you, along with others, tried to oust the only two progressive Black individuals who were actually trying to help the people, and because they were trying to help the people and actually show you up, you decided you were going to try to get them kicked out, which they got voted back in, and they're right back in the same chamber that they belong in. However, I keep saying this all the time, guys, in order for things to change, not only at the federal level, but at the local level, you have to push forward candidates that reflect your views. I say voting matters because it does. Without it, you don't want to see the dark side of that. But at the same time, if we want to change things, find candidates that fit your narrative, or even yourself, you can run. I mean, if anything has shown us in these last couple of elections, if you believe that you can serve people as a politician, run, and then let people know. Shoot, I thought about it a couple times, my doggone self. But I can guarantee off the bat, you don't want a Black man in Tennessee running things. Yeah, that's not going to end well for them, because let's be honest, you can't stand two Black people in the House and two people in Tennessee House of Representatives. You're not going to like a guy that's actually running the show. We already seen that the moment President Obama was elected president-elect. And let's just say I know some people in Tennessee that don't think I know. Yeah, we know your true colors. Just saying. Move right along, guys. I wanted to cover this story as well because, again, it always never ceases to amaze me that whenever it comes to certain things are being announced, it's almost like a distraction for other things. For example, drag queen shows. I mean, here in Tennessee, especially in Nashville, we have Drag Queen Storytime Hour, which I think it's great that people literally want to show kids the fundamentals of reading. Reading is fundamental. And if drag queens want to do that for an hour in a library and teach kids, more power to them. I don't have any issues with it. But of course, if you've been watching this podcast, we did cover stories, especially here in Tennessee and various other states, red line states, that they actually put in laws because they swear they're protecting kids from sexual acts. These is coming from the same politicians that are caught with gay lovers or had their hands in the cookie jar in places they would not be seen outside their Bibles. Yes, the party of family values my ass. Why am I talking about this? Well, because recently, San Francisco Archdiocese filed for bankruptcy as it faces more than 500 sexual abuse lawsuits. This is not the first time the Catholic Church has been caught with their pants in the cookie jar. But again, the Archdiocese of San Francisco is facing more than 500 sexual abuse lawsuits. Even more so that because they may settle, this may bankrupt the church there as they're actually filing for it. And I keep saying this all the time. It amazes me so how they always say, well, drag queens are the problem. Well, LGBTQ plus are the problem. Wokeism is the problem. No, it's not. Sometimes it's the same church you pass by that's the problem, especially in the Catholic Church. So again, 500 sexual abuse claims is going to bankrupt the church. I think we figured out how to actually solve things. Attack the money, which we should be doing anyway. We should attack the money. But at the same time, it always amazes me. They always sit there and say that drag queens are the problem. No, some priests that need their asses whooped. That's the problem, and it's lacking. That's all I'm saying about that. But moving right along, guys, I want to get back to this story about Jadarius Rose. Now, if you guys were following the story, this was a young man that was basically traveling as a truck driver, got pulled over, and then an officer with a K9 decided to let the K9 go, even though you could hear on the video the officer saying, "Do not let go. He is surrendered. He's unarmed. Do not release the animal." The K9 officer did release the animal. Now, of course, that K9 officer was no longer employed and he's been fired. And now the prosecutor is asking the judge to dismiss a felony charge against the black man who was bitten by a police dog. I bet he is, because I guarantee that very same black man is considering figuring out how to sue. Because, again, for all those that don't know, he got pulled over. He complied. He was out of the vehicle, complied, hands behind his back, was unarmed, everyone can see it, and the officer still released the dog. Even the officer sat there and said, "I told him to obey my commands." Well, here's the thing, law enforcement. When you're the ones holding the gun and you're the ones actually more enforced than I, it's hard to figure out which one of you guys is in charge and which one is not, because I'm too busy trying to make sure I don't get shot. At the same time, they are worried, as they should be. That man is considering legal counsel. He's already got legal counsel. I guarantee a lawsuit is coming, and he should sue. Because going back to attacking the money, when you attack the money, folks, and I mean this wholeheartedly, when you attack the money, things change. And I keep saying this about law enforcement, and I'm not the only person that said it, but I'm very sure down the line other people say this as well. If you want to change how law enforcement is done with minorities in this country, it's very simple. Take that police pension, and anytime there is a payout to the victims that was harmed by law enforcement, take out of that pension. I guarantee overnight those will drop. Because when it comes down to it, that's why insurance companies in Florida are pulling out. Insurance companies in Florida are pulling out because Florida is pretty much a hazard state. I mean, hurricanes, thunderstorms, tornadoes, you have everything short of Mother Nature just not liking Florida as a state. Insurance companies are tired of paying out. So what are they doing? They're no longer insuring the state of Florida. What just happened? Do you attack the money? Even though it was inadvertently attacked, it was still enough to make insurance companies pull out of Florida. So how do we make that relative with law enforcement? Anytime that law enforcement is found at fault, whether it's loss of life, attempted loss of life, or just flat out injury of a human being, and the police are found out at fault, take money from that pension. I guarantee it. I guarantee charges and things of that nature will drop, because the last thing you want to take from anybody is the same money they're depending on post-retirement. And that pension fund can get depleted. Don't believe me? Look at the Archdiocese of San Francisco I got through talking about. They're filing bankruptcy because of all the multiple sexual abuse charges. Imagine if 500 cases against law enforcement got put out there and that pension was the only way they could pay it. Again, it would change overnight. But speaking of things that are changing overnight, guys, you know, as a person that loves vehicles, I love cars and whatnot, but the American dream of owning cars and owning homes is getting a little ridiculous. Even more so, even in 2023, even with inflation, even with banks tightening the reins on lending money out, even with everything going else, I still have to ask this one question. Why is the price of cars still freaking high?
When it comes to buying a new or used car, your dollar just isn't going nearly as far as it used to. And now some Americans are falling behind on their monthly payments. Let's take a look by the numbers. 5 years ago, there were a dozen new car models that sold for less than $20,000, according to the Wall Street Journal. Today, there is just one new car model under 20 grand, the Mitsubishi Mirage hatchback, which made up just 5,300 of the 7.7 million new cars sold in the first half of 2023. Meanwhile, there are some 32 car models costing more than $100,000 in the U.S. The typical payment for a new car is now around $762 a month, with an interest rate of 9.5%, according to a report from Cox Automotive. The average used car price is now about $27,000. That's up 30% from pre-pandemic levels, with interest rates at a staggering 13.7% to take home a used vehicle. It all adds up to an average of 43 weeks of income to pay off a new car, according to Cox, up from about 33 weeks pre-pandemic. And with interest rates soaring, the number of people falling behind on their car payments is up 15.7% in July from a year ago, according to Cox. Those who are severely delinquent on car payments is at the highest level since 2006. That's leading to concerns that the car sales market, which remained strong through the pandemic, could soon be in for a reckoning if consumers start pulling back on what they're willing and able to pay.
And as they should. Think about that for a second. I mean, for the simple fact of the matter is, as the journalist pointed out, the latest car payment, $762. I know folks that are paying $800, $900, close to almost over $1,000 a month for a vehicle. And then you have banks, again, like I said, talking about the banks. Banks are tightening up on interest rates. Inflation is still high. But think about that. With everybody's income, because again, everything has gone up but your paycheck. Everything. And it's amazing how people are still getting squeezed, because we do need cars. Until we have figured out our mass transit system to really get us in places. I know some cities and states have figured it out. I know in Tennessee, we still haven't. But until we actually have a better transit system, folks need cars. If you need cars to go to work, cars to get around, if you have children, you need to get them to and from school, practice, things of that nature. You need a vehicle. And at the same time, the fact of all these hoops you got to jump through for a vehicle that is well overpriced. And again, the journalist is right. It is going to get to a point because people are falling behind on car notes, which means that repo guys are about to have Christmas. But even those repo guys are going to be out of business eventually, because just what if everybody stopped paying? What if everybody stopped paying car notes? What if everybody stopped buying cars? Even from a used car lot, people stop buying cars. Now you have inventory full of cars and trucks that can't move. People can't purchase them. Dealerships go under. Where are the cars going? See, that's why I say it is like Jenga. Jenga is like Jenga right now. And right now, we're at that shaky spot at the bottom of the tower where all it takes is just one more pull and the whole thing comes down. Because nobody is addressing why is that the price of cars is so high, even though they are becoming unattainable. They are becoming attainable. Even myself, I love a good pickup truck. But do you know, for most pickup trucks right now, they are in the, and it's just a quick glance, most pickup trucks, brand new, anywhere from low 60,000 up to 65, almost up to dang near 80 to 85,000, almost $90,000 on the high-end model trucks. Now think about that for a second. $60,000 and up for a truck. SUVs, even higher. I would almost damn near say 100,000, depending. Not just Cadillacs and high-end models. I'm talking about the fact that the prices are so freaking high, they're unattainable. And why? Because again, if you're not getting a lending, if you're not getting approved through a credit union, unless you are just constantly saving money, and even if you are, it's still ridiculous to pay that much for a vehicle. That's why nobody's buying. Nobody's going to really be spending. Nobody is going to be spending that much, that type of money. 60,000, that's house money. I mean, really, that's really almost house and then some money. Let me not say that. That's almost that's beyond a down payment for a house. It really is. But the thing of it is, nobody needs to be paying that without reason, because they'll sit there and cite inflation. Let's call it what it is. It's making sure that you're keeping profit. That's what it is. Profit and greed. It's really more greed than profit, because the simple fact of the matter is they could lower prices and still make a profit. But that greed, man, that greed with these companies and how they do things, they keep on thinking, oh, it's a phase. Oh, it'll change. Oh, it'll turn. No, it won't. How is it that you see companies out there that have hype, that are turnover employees, that are closing down areas, because guess what? They banked on the fact that everything would turn around, and it didn't. The car in the auto industry is not too far behind. It is going to have a falling out moment at this rate. And again, also so with homeownership too, because you know what? The American dream to own a home just got a little bit difficult. And by difficult, I mean damn near impossible.
House hunters are facing a financial challenge not seen in a generation. The average interest rate on 30-year mortgages soared to 7.48% yesterday. That's the highest level in nearly 23 years. Meantime, the median price of a house continues to come down from pre-pandemic highs, but it's still at $416,000. So if you bought a house for that much with current mortgage rates and a 20% down payment, you'd have a monthly payment of about $2,300.
Yeah. 20 that do you okay. It's almost it's asinine. It's crazy. It's nuts. It is inconceivable is what it is. To think that if you bought a house, now again, just using that example, if you bought a house that was priced at $400K, that means for the mortgage rate that it's at right now, you're paying almost $2,300 to $2,400 a month. That means after 3 months, you would have already paid the equivalent of nearly over $6,000. And I guarantee none of it goes to the principal. It goes to the interest. Call me. I'm just saying. And it's amazing that people are saying, well, it's not that hard to get a home. Yeah. It kind of is. For getting a mortgage, that means mortgage is bank approved. Did I just sit there and do not get me wrong? I just sat there and said banks are barely giving out loans unless they're subprime loans, which again, if you ever get a subprime loan, avoid it like the plague. Trust me, you'll be better for it. But banks are being very stringent about loans, whether it's auto or whether it's home loans. And at the same time, folks are going through Fannie Mae and trying to get those types of loans. Yes, it is possible, but look at the fact that it lowers the choices of homes that are available to you. But the fact that we're talking about the mortgage rate being 7.48%, the highest level since November of 2000. Homeownership is getting very, very difficult to get, especially for those, whether you're single or you have a family. That's the reason why I keep saying, especially like I said, I use my home state of Tennessee for a reason. That homes, if you have a home, if you have land, I stress this heavily. If you have home or land in your name, keep it, pass it down. If you have grandchildren or kids in your family, pass that mess down. Because again, land developers are buying up these homes with all these acres. They are bulldozing the home and putting up apartments because they figured out, and I hate to say this, they figured out, and this is the excuse that they use. People want to rent homes. That, and forgive my language, is some bullshit. Nobody wants to rent homes because number one, renting means that your money goes down the drain. It does not apply to anything. It does not help you in the long run. It's pretty much saying, here, thank you for letting me stay in a place that you own, but apparently I live here, but I have to make sure that you get your money on a monthly basis. If not, you can kick me out and I'm on the street. Oh, and by the way, that money goes to nowhere except for a roof over my head. That's it. Land developers and property owners have figured out, oh, if we build a bunch of apartments up, charge New York rent, folks will come. Not because folks need a place, it's because they see some areas as the it cities. Nashville was called an it city for years. People are still moving here on a daily basis. People need to live somewhere. So what are they doing? They're going to these apartments. They're paying that New York rent. Apartments that are already here are seeing what's going on. It's like, oh, we can jack up our rent too. To folks that have been living there for years, and how is their patronage awarded? More. We want more for you, and we want more from you in order for you to stay here, even though the services haven't changed. It's like, you know what it is? It's like going to college. Every year, college tuition goes up, but the education stays the same. Where is that money going? That's what renters have figured out. That's what landlords have figured out. Landlords have figured out that renters are like ATMs. You can make sure that you're getting money from them on a monthly basis. However, mortgage owners, you have money from them for a limited amount of time. Where most people with a mortgage try to knock that mess out anywhere from 10 to 20 years. In 10 to 20 years, they try to knock out their mortgage payments to where they can have the deed to their house and the land and just pay property taxes. They are completely happy about that. That's why I say it's only a finite time. But renters, oh, you have them for as long as they like to stay there. And the beauty part about it is the moment that renter moves out, there'll be somebody else that'll want that space. And the whole cash revenue system starts all over again. That's the problem. That instead of we actually wanting more home ownership, the fact that those that have the means and motive and they have the means and the funds and the options are turning a lot of us homeowners into renters. And it doesn't help that the mortgage rate is so high that you'll probably be paying it used to be a quarter of your income was supposed to go to where you live. Now it's more than half. Probably wouldn't be surprised if actually a whole paycheck. Probably wouldn't be surprised if it takes two people both working full-time jobs plus overtime just to make the payments. That alone does not scream there's an issue. But again, it might be like the auto industry. It might be that maybe everybody just needs to stop paying and let's just see what happens. Will the system crash? Yeah. I mean, at this point, the market bubble is going to crash just because the Airbnb market is going under. Why? Again, nobody wants to pay those prices. But we'll follow that as it goes along. But the American dream of owning a car and owning a home, as I said before, feel free to disagree with me, just seems on the impossible side right now. That is all I'm saying. But out of all this bad news, we do have some happy news to report. You guys did know that we did talk about the UPS strike that was supposed to happen at the end of July was avoided because they did have a conditional agreement. Well, it seems like that conditional agreement did actually get ratified, as they did actually agree on a new deal. UPS workers will be getting those air-conditioned trucks, as they should be getting, because if you haven't noticed, right now the U.S. is basically just one big old hot plate. It's not just Texas anymore. But UPS drivers will be getting air-conditioned trucks, will be getting bumps in pay. Part-timers will be getting more increase in tuition. And I keep saying this all the time, that we are going to be seeing a whole lot of strikes happen, simply put, because those who work are not getting what they need. I've said it once, I'll say it again. This is the reason why strikes are necessary. Strikes and unions. If you have a union near you, if you have a union in your profession, I should say. If you have a union in profession, I highly recommend you join it. If there's not one, talk about creating one for your profession. You never want to negotiate with your company by yourself. You never want to do that because they will not see you as an entity. They see you as one person, and as one person they can ignore. That's what they will do. But as a union, it's a little different because you have strength in numbers. I mean, for example, look what's going on in Los Angeles right now. The service industry, where all the hotel workers are now on strike. Those that work for the city of Los Angeles, for some of them, are on strike. And you know what I've noticed in every one of these strikes? It's always the same thing. Pay us. And I keep saying this all the time. Even with minimum wage, which minimum wage at this point in time, in 2023, Minimum wage should actually be closer to $25 an hour. Should be. Because minimum wage, by definition, for a lot of people that don't know, I'll gladly say it again, minimum wage is by definition the minimum that you can earn and still be able to sustain yourself with living, with food, and utilities. That is the definition of minimum wage. And even now, in 2023, minimum wage is $7.29. That is so below poverty, it's subterranean. And again, for all these strikes we've seen, whether it's teachers, whether it's nurses, whether it's FedEx or UPS drivers, the simple fact of the matter, guys, is they all ask the same thing. We want to be paid more, as people should be. Because the way that, and again, when you pay people more, the economy does better. Historically, economically, we have seen what happens when you give workers more money. They do buy. They have to buy. They have to pay. They have to pay bills. They have to pay utilities. They have to buy groceries. They have to buy clothing. They have to buy shoes. They consume. That said money that they earn goes right back into the U.S. economy system, and therefore produces a positive rate. But what happens when people are getting paid more? They cut back. They stop going out to eat as much, stop going to the movies, maybe cut a subscription here or two, maybe cut a service they're not using, cut a luxury. Either way, when they don't get paid, people contract to save money. When people do get paid, they spend. The economy does better. What a lot of people don't understand is we are literally, our economic system runs like a casino. It does. When you have patrons in there that have money that are willing to spend at a casino, they will spend the money thinking that they can earn big money. Ask any casino in Vegas, Atlantic City, or even I think across the pond from us in Arkansas. I think there's a Haraz casino or something over there. I know if Tennessee had a casino, we would clean up. I'm just going to be honest about that. But because of the states surrounding us that have casinos, they've lobbied to make sure Tennessee never has one, which I thought was asinine. But anyway, what I'm saying is, the U.S. capitalist system is a casino. We, unfortunately, are the ones that feed our coins to the slot machine. And as long as we keep feeding our coins to the slot machine, the casino runs fine. When people stop coming to said casino, the casino breaks down. The casino is the American economy. And until we start paying people more, we're going to see more of this and so-called inflation. We're going to see inflation, but inflation only reduces when people are spending, but it rises because it tries to entice spending, which I think is the most asinine way of trying to get people to spend money by raising things and limiting supplies. It is stupid. I completely know, but we'll see how that goes along. But to switch gears for a second, guys, here's the thing that I've always found interesting, that, in school that students should have rights. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, if you're accused of something, you're at the mercy of whoever is the educator, right? They say you did it, even though there might be evidence that you didn't do it, it's their word against yours, right? I always wondered, why was there never something in place to actually protect the student, even if he's found to be completely vindicated?
News investigation into school punishments. In some states, students who believe they've been unfairly suspended or expelled may not always get an opportunity to adequately defend themselves. Our Priscilla Thompson reports.
Here's the start of the situation. This is from the superintendent.
What were some of your goals?
Playing my senior year, having my dad and mom walk me out for senior game day, taking my mom to prom.
Dreams that were shattered last November when Corey Jones of Tuscaloosa, Alabama, was accused of bringing marijuana to campus after police say they found weed in a car he and 4 friends rode in. What has this process been like?
Hell.
CJ, who received special services in school for a learning disability, says he was called into the office and read his Miranda rights, which he told police he didn't understand.
People are asking me, like, who is it? Who is it? Well, they saying it's yours. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know who it is.
Police investigated and charged someone else, not CJ, who had no prior disciplinary issues, his attorney says. But CJ says he spent nearly 2 months in school suspension before getting a disciplinary hearing, where his dad says CJ was given little chance to defend himself. Were you all allowed to see the evidence against CJ?
No, ma'am.
Were you all allowed to challenge the statements made by his accusers?
No, ma'am.
Tuscaloosa City Schools then ordered CJ attend alternative school for 45 days.
I mainly was mad. I cried in front of all of them because I was hurt.
An NBC News investigation found students' ability to defend against what can be life-altering punishments largely depends on where they live. Several states, including Nevada, Virginia, and Alabama, don't specify students' rights in state law, but rather give broad authority to school districts. Do you feel like you all got any due process?
No, ma'am. Due process does not exist in the school system here in Alabama.
CJ's parents hired an attorney, but district policy prohibited her from being inside the meeting where they tried to appeal his punishment. Charles Bell has spent more than a decade studying punishment in schools.
We're literally pushing children out of school.
More than 2.6 million students were expelled or suspended for the most recent year federal data is available. Black students were suspended at a rate more than double the national average, though experts say Black kids don't misbehave more often.
You have to leave, you're guilty, and we don't want to hear from you anymore. That's the thinking that we've created with allowing broad discretion and zero tolerance policies.
Tuscaloosa City Schools declined NBC's request for an on-camera interview, but say their policies exceed due process requirements and that when students violate the code of conduct, they are given notice of the alleged violation, an explanation of the evidence supporting the violation, and an opportunity to respond.
No one had the time to listen to them. You accept what we give you, that's it.
You got the diploma. CJ's parents refused to send him to alternative school.
I can see what I accomplished.
Instead, he finished his senior year online.
Thinking about the little kids that look like me. I got to fight like hell. I'm not going to stop.
As CJ moves forward, his family continues to fight against what they see as a broken system. Priscilla Thompson, NBC.
Crazy, isn't it? That it's one thing that you can't defend yourself, but when school systems have just a little bit too much power, where in his case, they tried to come at him saying, oh, well, they said the weed was yours. No. And then you find out that it wasn't him. So no apology, no public apology, nothing of that nature. But at the same time, you just said, okay, well, you must have been a part of it. So now you have to go to alternative school. I don't blame his parents for fighting it, as they should, because it's a number one, it's an accusal. Number two, there's no vindication and there's no apology. If I was the parents, yes, go after them. But isn't that kind of messed up that schools have that much power to where the parents, that's the thing that kills me. You can't show the parents the evidence that you have against their child that makes you vindicated. That right there is where it doesn't make any sense. With my children, if someone tried to do that with my kids and tries to say, oh, we can't show you. Yeah, you will. Yeah, you will. Or I'm pulling my child out because you are accusing them of something that obviously they didn't do. You find out later they didn't do it, but you still want something to hold, you still want to punish them. And I just think that's crazy. Even more so that as much as I love educators, there are some school officials out there who have some very redundant policies. And again, the fact they try to say, well, we showed the student. Let me explain something to you. Have you ever talked to a child when they did something wrong? First off, you don't speak to a child without their parent. That's first and foremost. Because what is a child going to do? A child may be able to think, but they do not have the proper experience to make adult decisions, not a child. That's why the parents are like, why did we should have been in there with him as they were explaining it. Now, I'm not saying that happens for all school systems, but at the same time that it happens in one is effing scary. And I do mean effing scary. But speaking of things that are effing scary, because again, I have to know what it is about law enforcement, because I keep saying this happens. This happens, unfortunately, in areas that need explanation. What I mean by that is, and I'm about to apologize for the story that I'm about to talk about, a 10-year-old in Mississippi was arrested for urinating in public. Now, again, this is actually an ongoing story where a Mississippi police officer jailed a 10-year-old child who urinated in the parking lot because his mother was trying to get him to a restroom facility, couldn't find one, so decided that, okay, she tried to put the child to where he can go and be done about it, but a police officer saw what was going on, arrested the 10-year-old boy and put him back in his car. Now, they're trying to say, of course, at the beginning of this, that the officer who did arrest the child is no longer employed. It's amazing that whenever the police officers get involved, that they refuse to name exactly what's going on. But think about this for a second. A 10-year-old. Who's ever had kids? Look, I've always said it best. When kids got to go, they got to go. And again, the mother was simply at a lawyer's office and the boy had to go. Okay? No bathrooms in sight. Nobody's around. Let me just go ahead and go. But it drives me crazy that an officer sees this, and instead of asking the boy what's wrong, where's your parents, why are you out here urinating, he immediately goes to arresting. And again, this doesn't make any sense. And they try to actually say they actually try to cite the child's mother. They try to issue a citation for a child in need of services. Are you effing kidding? That's the thing that kills me. So they try to cite the mother saying, oh, well, since your 10-year-old child was urinating outside behind your car, that this might need a welfare check. This is why I say for law enforcement, there are some things that don't make any sense. They don't. Because this was an officer that abused his power, arrested a 10-year-old. He ought to be fired and blacklisted. See, what they didn't say was he was blacklisted. And I keep on saying this all the time. The one thing I wish they would do in law enforcement that would make people of color feel better, introduce a national registry when officers do dumb stuff like this, they're blacklisted, which means that if they try to actually, because again, for all those who don't know, if you are fired from one law enforcement agency, as long as it's not murder or theft or anything of that nature, they can simply go to another state and they can go to another state and get hired as a law enforcement officer. That's just being honest. As long as it wasn't heinous crimes or it wasn't murder, things of that nature, if they were just let go or fired, they can go somewhere else and still be a law enforcement officer, which I guarantee what will happen with Mr. Mississippi. He will probably go to another state, probably somewhere where it more benefits him more than anything else, and he'll become a police officer there with no issue. And that's the part that is troublesome. And again, that tells me off the bat that things need to change. Even more so in this other story that I got about the FedEx driver who was literally getting shot. And again, tell me if this sounds familiar. A FedEx driver was followed by two white men in a truck and was being shot at. Sounds a little too close to home, doesn't it? What if I sat there and told you that same trial, which should have been a slam dunk to get these two white men convicted, was declared a mistrial? I can't make this stuff up. This actually happened.
Mississippi, a shocking turn tonight in the attempted murder trial of two white men accused of chasing and shooting at a black FedEx driver. The judge declaring a mistrial. Jesse Kirsch has details.
Tonight, outrage in Mississippi. A judge declaring a mistrial in the case of two white men accused of trying to murder DeMontario Gibson, a black FedEx driver who had just made a delivery.
And with great reluctance, the court has no choice in this matter but to grant the motion for a mistrial.
Gibson's mother escorted from court today after Judge David Strong's ruling, a day after a police officer admitted to withholding evidence. Brookhaven Police Detective Vincent Fernando saying under oath that authorities had taken a videotaped statement from Gibson, but did not share it with either the defense or prosecution, as was required.
the failure to turn over matters in discovery is just something that can't be ignored. In 17 years, I don't think I've ever seen it happen, but it happened here.
A mistrial is a major hiccup for the prosecution, but all in all, a second trial really saps the resources of the defense more than the state.
Brookhaven police have not responded to NBC News' request for comment. Gibson says in January 2022, he made a delivery in his FedEx uniform and was driving a Hertz van with the rental company's markings when Gregory Case and his son Brandon allegedly chased and shot at him. Gregory Case's attorney says his client only planned to ask the driver what was happening outside his mother-in-law's home, but the driver did not stop. Gibson believes he was chased because he's black. In a statement tonight, Gibson's attorney calling the mistrial a delay in justice, calling on the Department of Justice to investigate the Brookhaven Police Department. Jesse Kirsch.
Like I said, you can't make this up. Imagine, again, that it is clear cut and dry. Really is clear cut and dry that some white people do feel like they're empowered to stop black people and ask them like they're police. And in this case, they decide to shoot. So let me get this straight. Not only do you have the fact that this man did admit that he did shoot this black man, not only did they admit the fact that they did chase, that they actually followed this black man, that they tried to stop him, that they tried to do law enforcement actions and they're not law enforcement, but the fact that the police withheld evidence. Let me get this straight. Law enforcement withheld evidence in a trial. Why isn't, number one, the detective or officer, his commanding officer, and the chief of police all at this time? It's a big ass chain of command. Why aren't those three people right now being arrested? Why are they still allowed to be on the force? Why are they still allowed to run cases? Why are they still allowed to be law enforcement officers? Because I'm gonna tell you something. It's a little difficult for me to remain in the same city where two people shot at me and are now out and free and not think that they'll probably take another shot at me. Now, I can't imagine what that black man's going through. I can't. I can imagine his fear. I can imagine that he might be not by himself. Better to be within numbers, and better not be carrying, and better not be empty-handed, if you get my point. But the idea of it all is, where's the justice in that? That somebody, I mean, it's crazy enough that someone can sit there and pull that mess off, and at the same time get away with it because the police failed to do their job. Remember what I said about law enforcement being held accountable? If I was that former FedEx driver, because the former FedEx did actually fire him, which is another crazy part of it. But if I was his lawyer, I'd be suing the police department because they failed because of their incompetence. That two killers got to go free. So yes, I would be suing the pants off him, and he still might. This is still a fresh story. But think about that for a second. That police withholding evidence is the same reason why two white men are able to go free after they just attempted to shoot somebody. And yet they wonder why concealed carry has increased, why firearms are still needed, why the Second Amendment is still needed. Because you know why? Because these days, it's better to be caught with one than without one. And it's getting a little bit harder not to try to argue against that. But we'll follow that story as it comes along. The last story I got, guys, is climate change. Because if you've been in the South or really been anywhere except the North these days, Mother Nature has decided to turn on the air fryer and then walk off.
Record heat and pounding rain down south, mudslides out west, wildfires coast to coast. President Biden, in the face of these disasters, now facing new pressure to declare climate change a national emergency. It's something Democrats have been hoping for a while, even before Congress passed that sweeping climate law last year.
We are in an emergency, and it is a worldwide emergency.
It didn't happen then, but activists hope it will now.
President Biden, we need your help. Declare a climate emergency.
So what would that even do? Declaring an emergency can unlock special powers for a president in a crisis without needing approval from Congress, thanks to a law passed nearly 50 years ago. Since then, every president has declared at least one emergency during their time in office. Former President Trump, for example, signing one in the pandemic. Former President George W. Bush declaring one after 9/11. Now, 57% of voters support the naming of a new national emergency on climate if Congress doesn't do more, according to recent polling. If President Biden were to do that, it could mean new incentives, for example, to cut greenhouse gas emissions, speed up EV production, and build more renewable energy centers.
Are you prepared to declare a national emergency with respect to climate change?
I've already done that. We're moving. It is the existential threat to humanity.
So you've already declared that national emergency.
Practically speaking, yes.
Yeah.
But practically speaking is different from actually declaring it. And if he did, Republicans would probably sue, meaning the whole thing could land at the steps of the Supreme Court, a legal challenge and an environmental one.
It's not just the legal potential hurdles here. You already have the president facing the beginnings of political pushback from at least one member of his own party, Senator Joe Manchin, a Democrat, of course, moderate Democrat, who just recently is promising to launch, in his words, a fight against what he describes as the Biden administration's radical climate agenda.
Lisa Census is a busy law.
Sorry about that. So, climate change. I think we can all agree that climate change is real. For the simple fact of the matter, guys, especially here in Tennessee, we're in 90-degree weather well into next week. 90 degrees. Actually, I think it's supposed to be 100 degrees come tomorrow. So we pretty much have been under the sun. California has experienced its first hurricane, mudslides. Dodger Stadium is a pool right now. And everywhere else, there has been massive heat, drought, rains that normally wouldn't happen this point in the year. Climate change is real. Will Biden actually declare a climate emergency? That remains to be determined. Just because, as Haley Staten pointed out, that if he did, it would unlock special powers, which again, he could, because the National Emergency Act, that he could indicate some things to be done. Cutting greenhouse gas emissions, which every country has pledged to do, because again, we have to get off the dinosaur juice. We have to. I mean, electric vehicles is going to be the standard going forward. I understand that people are going to say, well, the lithium batteries keep catching fire and I won't be able to take my four-wheeler out and go mudding. Yeah, America. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. But the point I'm getting at is just that, yes, climate change needs to be addressed. 98% of the scientific community has agreed that climate change is real. Some people being denied. The earth is cooling. No, it's not. The earth is having a hell of a hot flash, and we are just now, and people are now just realizing that, just being out in the world. The problem is, folks will not, you got folks out there who, again, of the big oil and fossil fuels community, good old Joe Manchin, good old moderate Democrat, but really Republican in disguise, Joe Manchin. He's from West Virginia. West Virginia is a coal mining state. Even though coal is becoming a dead industry, right along with fracking, those in that state believe that, well, if we cut down on coal, how are we going to power things? Well, other countries have figured it out. I mean, Europe, the European Union has figured it out. China has figured it out. Norway, Finland, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand. I can keep going about countries out there who were used to be considered third world countries are now more advanced because they figured out how to do power grids using wind, solar, water turbines, things of that nature. America, the simple fact of the matter, could push themselves forward, but that also means we have to get off the dinosaur juice. Because again, with fossil fuels, America is still the number one exporter of oil. I'm sorry, that's wrong. America is still number one. I'm wrong. I'm not wrong. America is still the number one exporter of oil. Russia is number 3. Saudi Arabia is number 2. The point I'm getting at is, guys, is just that eventually President Biden is going to have to say, yes, we have a climate crisis, an emergency, and declare it. And yes, this may go to Supreme Court, to where a conservative reaching Supreme Court, when these days they can go left or right, because they've already gutted part of affirmative action for colleges. They've already shot down Roe versus Wade. I still say Clarence Thomas is salivating at Brown versus Board of Education. That's just me. This is the same Supreme Court that does need oversight, but swear up and down that we should trust them because they're highest court in the land. Yeah, that's like trusting Herbert from Family Guy with your children. I'll leave it at that if you've seen Family Guy. But we will follow that as it goes along. I hope President Biden does declare a climate emergency because, again, we do need to cut down on greenhouse gas emissions, work on renewable sources, and finally get off the dinosaur juice, no matter what Manchin believes. But that being said, guys, we're going to go into our feel-good segment because usually how the frack we got here, we usually cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Sometimes make use of faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday, it's hump day. Tomorrow is Friday, which is Thursday. And I want to leave you guys out with some good vibrations. And I believe the next story will do exactly that because Sha'Carri Richardson, again, a young woman who is a phenomenal talent, did make a comeback as she, ran the pants off everybody.
Finally, after a suspension cost her a spot at the Tokyo Olympics, American Sha'Carri Richardson has made a spectacular return by officially becoming the fastest woman in the world. Here's Ann Thompson.
You are capable of winning this race.
Sha'Carri Richardson took the worst lane, lane 9.
Here comes Sha'Carri Richardson!
And 10.65 seconds later, made the best of it.
Sha'Carri's done it!
World champion in the 100 meters. A remarkable comeback for the 23-year-old who had gold medal aspirations before the Tokyo Olympics.
It feels amazing. It feels like everything that paid off.
In 2021, Richardson nearly made the Olympic team until she tested positive for marijuana after learning of the death of her mom. The subsequent suspension knocked her out of the Tokyo Games.
I would like to say to my fans and my family and my sponsorship, I apologize.
Now her running does the talking.
I wanted my performance to speak all the words that I needed to speak myself.
Trailing for most of the race, Richardson surged ahead of the Jamaicans, including the defending world champ.
Seeing my name pop up also with a PR.
A personal record that took a while to sink in.
This entire season, I know I belong. I know I deserve to be here. And it just feels amazing to execute that as well.
Leaving the past behind.
I'm not back. I'm better.
Tonight, Sha'Carri Richardson is the fastest woman in the world. Ann Thompson, NBC.
And I love the fact that she is completely unapologetic about it. I freaking love that. Sha'Carri Richardson, of course, congratulations. Now she is the fastest woman in the world. Well deserved, because I always sat there and said it is amazing to me that the only thing that they try to offer to her, well, she smoked weed. For all those who are fans of the plant, weed does a lot of things. It makes you feel great. It might up your mood. It might relax you. It doesn't make you effing empowered. I'm just pointing that out. But again, we leave it on good note. So congratulations, Sha'Carri Richardson, for that. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up here, guys. Before we do get out of here with some shameless plugging, as always, I do want to shout my boy Vaughn, a big VZA dot, at all social media, who is actually helping out with some new beats for the show. I can't wait to actually get them uploaded. Thank you for that, good sir. He actually has a YouTube page that has plenty of music there for your content needs. And if you have a need for new beats for whatever you may have, whether it's a television show, whether it's for a logo, check that man out, Big VZA dot, on all social media. As for myself, guys, you can find me Black Fox 447 on all socials. I usually do reviews on everything that I read, that I play, that I watch. Also some gym stuff, because I do try to do a few push-ups. The link at the bottom, let me link that a little bit bigger for you guys to see. If you copy and paste that link into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, Off One's podcast. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know what you think about everything that we discussed tonight. I do want to keep the conversation going. The only rule that I have is keep it clean, keep it friendly, keep it positive, because we're all about sharing ideas. Not everybody is right. Feel free to agree to disagree. That is the whole entire point sometimes. And just simply put, have adult conversations. We can do that, right? I like to think we can. We can, right? But anyway, aside from that, guys, as we wrap this up, we will definitely be back here with a replay this Saturday on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And of course, from there, guys, like I said, this political season, I cannot stress this enough. Learn the candidates who are running for your local and your state. Now, keep in mind, depending on where you are, you might still have some state elections, but we are entering 2024, which means we are about to have our presidential nominations go through. Whether you're a president, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, please know your candidates. Know if they fit what you're wanting. If they don't, look at everybody. At the same time, ask questions. Hold feet to the fire. Again, there's a certain episode of the Newsroom, if you ever get to see it, where they do a wonderful way of doing Debate 2.0. If you ever watch it, and one day I'm going to post it up here because I think if I do, HBO won't ban me, but I still want to try it anyway. Because the way they did a debate, holding a candidate's feet to the fire, asking them uncomfortable questions, not prepared ones, shows you the type of people that they are. So again, if you get a chance, ask your question, but get informed, get involved. That is what the whole point of everything that I do here. That being said, guys, last thing to say about how the Frack got here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information to allow you to make up your own mind, but we do provide a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black woman as a National Cybersecurity Advisor, and waiting in the wings is our first Black Armed Forces general over the Air Force. Still waiting because of freaking senator. But anyway, waiting because you know what's going to happen. All great things. When we don't learn from history, that's what we're doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up but your paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians to still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves and each other, and we'll all get through this. Peace.